Well, well. Hello, hello, hello. And happy anniversary of Spider-Man 2 to those who celebrate. 20th anniversary this weekend, this Sunday. Crazy. Outrageous. How time flies. And today we are going to be reading from David Cap's script to Spider-Man from 2002. The filming script, the script that they were using when they were filming the movie. Um, and we started this read through a couple months ago, and we're picking up where we left off. When we last left off, Uncle Ben just bit the dust, and we were all very sad. Unrelated, Norman Osborn turned himself into some sort of creature, and I'm sure that's not going to come back up again. And when we pick up here, we're at the Quest Aerospace Testing Grounds. And again, happy Spider-Man 2 20th anniversary to all who celebrate. Um, Now, reading the script is, I think, a really interesting way to, see how things came together for this movie. To watch how, take a look at the blueprint and to see how that changed as the film progressed. And naturally, I have my pizza Joe's Pizza shirt today because of the 20th anniversary of Spider-Man 2. And but we're taking it back to the beginning with the script to Spider-Man 1. And we left off right here. Exterior, Quest Aerospace Testing Grounds, night. An angled concrete surface fades up out of darkness. Headlights sweep slowly across bold letters painted there. Bunker 6, Quest Aerospace Proving Grounds. A car arrives and General Slocum gets out and is met by Quest Aerospace's project coordinator. They walk along the back of the bunker. The project coordinator says, "Our exoskeleton's got real firepower, General Slocum." General Slocum says, "If it does what you say it can, I'll sign the contract tomorrow." As the men exit frame, they reveal the Badger, Quest's military exoskeleton design, some distance from the bunker. Closer shot. Technicians unplug and scurry away from the war machine. Exterior bunker, night. Through a set of observation slits, we see General Slocum peering out. The project coordinator slides up beside him. "And what about your commitment to Oscorp?" "Nothing would please me more than to put Norman Osborn out of business." As an alternative line, in parentheses, we also have, "Okay, let's see if this dog will hunt." Close up on test pilot. The test pilot adjusts some knobs on the control panel. The test pilot says, "Beginning mission profile," and mark. The Badger begins to rise as billowing smoke covers the frame. Exterior bunker, night. Slocum and the rest of the delegation observe the action through the slits. Bunker POV. We see the Badger lift off in a cloud of exhaust, rotate. Close up of test pilot. A green glow reflects off his visor. The test pilot says, "What the hell is that?" He looks down at his control panel, makes adjustments. The test pilot's eyes go wide. The test pilot says, "Oh my god, what is that?" With 3 exclamation points. "No!" With a bunch of O's. The bunker POV. The Badger explodes in a massive ball of flame. Exterior bunker, night. Through the slits, we see Slocum and the other inhabitants go pale, their faces illuminated by the explosion. Bunker POV. The silhouette of the Goblin emerges through the fireball of the exploding Badger, and a missile whizzes beneath camera. Rocket POV. The rocket races toward the observation slit in the bunker. Slocum's face fills with fear, realizes his fate. Exterior bunker, night. There is a massive explosion in the bunker. Fire and debris shoot through the observation slits. A hideous cackle is heard disappearing into the night. And scene. Uh, that green glow, the horrible green glow. How's it going, everybody, so far? So that's that first scene. Can everybody hear me okay? Can you see me okay? Um, I'm not again, like last time, I'm not gonna take too much time going through, commenting as I'm going. Maybe, after a scene, I'll stop to comment a little bit. But the interest of keeping the story moving and keeping the time contained, I'm just gonna keep rolling through the script here. Um, but some interesting observations there. I think it's interesting that David kept seems to be even like writing for Sam Raimi with all these POVs of from underneath the Goblin glider, a POV of the rocket. We never quite we don't really get that in the movie, as it turns out, funnily enough. But it's interesting that I guess he's kind of writing with Sam Raimi in mind here at this point in the game. Because again, this is the filming script, what they were using as they're filming. And for those of you following along at home, we're on page 50 in the script. But because the script is filled with revisions, page 50A, 50B, whatever, it's actually real page 63. And again, this is all through the generousness of the main writer, David Kep, who is kind enough to put, all of his scripts, or seemingly all of them, online for educational purposes. And I do think it's a really interesting way to sort of peer behind the curtain and see how this story came together. Hey, Destiny, yeah, long time no see. So, to kind of celebrate the Spider-Man 2 20th anniversary this week, and I'm reading the script to Spider-Man 1. And okay, great to be back to the story. Everyone can check and check. Thank you, Wholesome Webs. Nice to see you here. And well, let's continue on then. Exterior outdoor amphitheater day. Hundreds of mortarboards fly into the air, and a great cheer rises up from the bareheaded high school students. Graduation day. In the crowd, the graduates swarm everywhere, hooking up with their jubilant parents. Norman Osborn and Aunt May, separate from one another, searching for their kids. Favor Peter looking for Aunt May. He sees Harry. Peter says, "We made it, buddy." Harry says, "Good news. My father owns a building downtown with an empty loft he said we could have. Why not move in with me when you get to the city?" "I'm not sure I can afford the rent." "We'll work something out." Peter, crossing his fingers, "Gotta get a job first." Another angle. Favor Aunt May and Norman Osborn still searching. Aunt May spots Norman. Aunt May says, "Mr. Osborn, I'm May Parker, Peter's aunt. I've heard about you." Osborn says, "Aunt May, how do you do? Can't find my boy." Aunt May, spotting him, says, "There's Harry." Harry appears with his diploma. Norman looks at him, a tight smile. "Hey, Dad, you made it. It's not the first time I've been proven wrong. Congratulations." He holds out a hand. Harry takes it, accepts the firm handshake. "Thanks." Aunt May, hugging him, says, "Congratulations, Harry." Osborne's face suddenly lights up, noticing something over Harry's shoulder. "Aha! The winner of the Science Award." Peter appears, carries his diploma and science award. Aunt May says, "Here's our graduate." She hugs him. "You two looked so handsome up there." Osborne puts his arm around Peter. "I know this has been a hard time for you, but try to enjoy this day. Commencement. The end of something, the start of something new. Thanks, Mr. Osborne. And if you ever need anything." Favor Harry watching his father and Peter. Harry spots MJ with Flash and her crowd. He moves toward her. Flash puts his arms around MJ's waist. She pulls away. A few words between them. We see her remove something from one of her fingers, hands it to Flash. Flash is stunned, angry. He hurls it over the crowd and stalks off. Harry sees this, looks back over at Peter, still next to his father. Harry moves to console MJ. And end of that scene. Um, this little exchange is interesting for a couple reasons. I mean, we don't ever really get to see this sort of meeting for the first time between Aunt May in Norman Osborn. Well, at least not in this scene here. So that's kind of nice. And I do like how Aunt May congratulates Harry. That's a very wholesome moment of her hugging him and congratulating him and telling them both, how handsome they looked up there on the stage. Very, very aunt material, I would say, in my experience. Um, and I do like too, Harry and Peter talking about how they're going to work out their living situation. Harry's going to find a way to make it work somehow. Uh, moving on, once I find my place again. Interior, the Parker house, day, late afternoon. Aunt May and Peter have just come in. Peter, carrying his gown, moves slowly to the stairs. Aunt May holds his diploma and his science prize. She watches him start up. May I fix you something? No thanks. She watches him, recognizes the sadness. Interior, Peter's bedroom, night. Peter sits on the side of his bed, his door left ajar. In a moment, Aunt May appears at the door, knocks, enters. She looks at him, then puts his diploma on his desk and his science prize on a shelf, along with a few other awards. She moves to the bed and sits beside him. Finally, Peter says, I missed him a lot today. I know. I miss him too. Takes his hand. But he was there. Peter says, I just wish I hadn't. Peter, don't start that again. I can't help thinking about the last thing I said to him. Stop it. He tried to tell me something important, and I threw it in his face. You loved him, and he loved you. He never doubted the man you would grow into, how you were meant for great things. You won't disappoint him, or me. She waits another moment, then squeezes his hand and gets up, moves to the door. She leaves quietly, closing the door all the way. Peter gets up, opens a dresser drawer, moves some sweaters out of the way, digs all the way to the bottom of the drawer where his Spider-Man costume is crumpled, the red sweatshirt lying on top of it, the spider outline sketched on its front. In a voiceover, we hear Uncle Ben say, Remember, with great power comes great responsibility. We hear the approach of what will become a great roar. Dissolve to exterior, Manhattan, day. A train roars out of a tunnel. Interior train, day. Peter sits in the train, staring at the skyline, a pile of college textbooks in his lap. Exterior, Manhattan, day. Manhattan is in the background as the train heads into the heart of the city. Exterior, Delhi, day. A robber races out of a Korean deli, gun in one hand, sack of money in the other. The grocer chases him out, carrying a baseball bat. The robber turns to shoot him when suddenly, thwip! A web strand wraps around the gun and yanks it sharply out of the robber's hand. Stunned, both robber and grocer turn. A shadow disappears into the night, barely seen. Exterior street, day. A cabbie leans against his cab, talking to a couple other cabbies. Cabbie says with a heavy accent, This is not a man. My brother saw it building a nest in the Lincoln Center fountain. Exterior, jewelry store, night. A police car screeches to a halt in front of a jewelry store, siren screaming. Two cops race up to the glass doors, which have been smashed, the store's alarm wailing. The cops suddenly look up, over the door, where they see three jewelry thieves and their bag of loot caught in a web net, dangling from a lamppost, neatly tied up for them. Tied up neatly for them, for those perfectionists. Uh, Exterior, construction site, day. Two construction workers dangle their feet off a beam while eating lunch. Construction worker says, Have you ever seen his face? Neither have I. Wait until his wife figures out he's running around in tights. Exterior, dark street, night. A woman holds out her purse, huddling before a mugger who's holding a gun on her, until he's suddenly gone, swept up into the air by the red and blue blur that flashes through the frame. Her purse falls back into frame. She scoops it up. A note attached reads, "Courtesy, your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man." Exterior police station, day. A uniformed cop talks excitedly with a couple other cops. Cop says, "Never mind the vigilante thing. You seen all those webs he leaves all over the city? I'm gonna cite the guy for littering." Interior, Daily Bugle, day. Who is Spider-Man? Costume figure saves fire victims. It's the headline of a tabloid newspaper, the Daily Bugle. There's also a large photograph of a burning building and a fuzzy, indistinct figure crawling up the side of it. Jameson, off screen, says, "He's a criminal. That's who he is." The paper lowers with a crumple, revealing the face of J. Jonah Jameson, owner of the last flat top haircut in America. "A vigilante. A public menace. What's he doing on my front page?" Hoffman, an employee of the Bugle, enters the office, interrupting the meeting Jameson is having with his city editor, Robbie Robertson. "Mr. Jameson, we have a page 6 problem." "We have a page 1 problem. Shut up." Robbie says, "He's news." "They're a major account. It can't wait." "It's about to." Robbie, ignoring Hoffman, says, "He saved 6 people from burning to death." "In a fire he probably started. Something goes wrong and this creepy crawler's there. What's that tell you?" "Boss, he's a hero." "Then why does he wear a mask? What's he got to hide?" Hoffman says, "We double sold page 6. Both Conway and Macy's bought 3/4 of it." "We sold out all 4 printings, Jonah." "Sold out?" "Every copy." "Spider-Man, page 1 tomorrow, with a decent picture this time." Jameson turns to Hoffman. "Move Conway to page 7. There's a problem with page 7. Then move them to page 8 and tell them we'll give them an extra column inch. Get out of here." "Can't get a picture. I've had Eddie on it for weeks. Nobody ever gets more than a glimpse of him." "What, is he shy? If we can get a picture of Julia Roberts in a thong, we can certainly get a picture of this nut. Put an ad on the front page. Cash money for a picture of Spider-Man. Doesn't want to be famous?" Exterior, Daily Bugle, day. His voice continues over the exterior of the building. "Then I'll make him infamous." So that's a little different. I kind of like the idea here of, just hearing Jameson's voice screaming out over the building as we exit this scene. Also interesting, we actually sort of see Peter's transition into the city in a way that we don't really get in the final version of the movie. We have this, moment of him like, going through the train, actually entering into Manhattan. And that's sort of a neat thing. It's kind of an odd, bump in the flow, I think, of going from seeing the Spider-Man logo in his dresser to swinging into action. So I assume that's something that, Danny Elfman as the composer would probably have to work to, like, kind of smooth over that transition musically to kind of make that flow as well as it would. And in a couple different sort of vignettes here too than what we end up getting in the final movie. Um, and yeah, there's Hoffman doing his thing as usual. Um, Also, I like Aunt May mentioning that, Peter won't disappoint her either. Certainly not. Perhaps they changed that just because, the focus of the conversation in the moment is Uncle Ben. So maybe they thought they wanted to keep it squarely there. Hi from Peter to Kayleen and Sean, who said hi from Kayleen and Sean to Peter. So hi right back at you, fellas. Okay, and now on to the next one. Exterior, Chelsea Street, day. We're looking through the glass doors of Moondance, a seedy-looking diner downtown. Inside, we see Mary Jane Watson, wearing a hideous orange waitress uniform, being berated by a surly cook. She punches a time clock, grabs a raincoat, and stalks out of there. As the doors open, a blast of noise and grease washes out after her. She makes her way down the street. The guy passing her stops, checks her out. It turns out to be Peter. Hey, Peter says. MJ doesn't look up. Buzz off. Keeps walking. Mary Jane Watson? She freezes, as if hearing her own name frightens her. Peter, continuing, MJ, it's me, Peter. MJ turns, lights up, pulls her raincoat closed. Peter! Peter says, Hi, how have you been? What are you doing around here? MJ says, I live around the corner. I was headed to an audition. An audition! So you're an actress now. MJ says, Working steady. In fact, I just got off a job. That's great, MJ. Yeah, I've never been happier. It's like they say, it's all about the work, the work is everything. But how about you? How's the photography? Peter says, Great. Beat. Actually, I haven't done much with it. I've been kind of busy going to college. He holds up the classifieds, looking for a job, saving the world. But you, look at you. You're actually living the life you dreamed about. Suddenly, the door to the diner opens and the surly cook steps out, clutching a pile of restaurant checks in his meaty fist. The surly cook says, Hey, glamour girl, your drawer's off by $6. Next time, I take it out of your check. You get me? She ignores him. Excuse me, Miss Watson, I am speaking words to you. You get me? Yes, Enrique, okay? I get you, Enrique. He goes back inside, banging the door shut behind him. MJ looks down. Can't look Peter in the face. By way of an explanation, she opens her raincoat, flashes him the uniform. Some dream, huh? But it's just temporary. Few extra dollars. Peter says, Well, that's nothing to be embarrassed about. In parentheses, as a possible line, You think they need a waiter? MJ says, Don't tell Harry. Harry? MJ sees his look. Aren't you guys living together? We've been going out. Didn't he tell you? Peter, recovering. Oh, yeah. Right. MJ says, I think he'd hate the idea of my waiting on tables. He'd think it was low. Well, Harry never has lived on a little planet I like to call Earth. MJ laughs at what Peter just said. Um, Peter continues, Probably half the people starring on Broadway were waiters or even dishwashers. MJ says, How come you always make me feel better? He smiles, shrugs. An awkward moment. MJ says, Well, she turns to go. It's good to see you, Peter. Peter calls after her, Maybe I'll come down and have a cup of your Moondance coffee someday. Quickly, he adds, And I won't tell Harry. MJ looks back. No, don't tell Harry. Peter says to himself, No, I won't. I won't tell Harry. Finally, he turns and starts off in the other direction. He walks alone. He says to himself, Harry and Mary Jane. Wow. He keeps walking, sad. Don't tell Peter. Walks on. And scene. Okay. Well, that, had a little bit of a difference to it as well, um, which I kind of like to see. So some of the differences in the conversation they have. It got a little bit more ironed out, I think, in the finished version of the film. Um, but Peter kind of reinforcing his, trying to help MJ feel better. He does that a little bit more in this version here. MJ also has a little more to say about, trying to say she's working, and it's this kind of early tragedy of the two of them kind of trying to, make each other think that they're doing better than they are. Yeah, because they both know what their dreams are, and they want to be able to say, "Yeah, I'm doing the dream." Um, and they both have to admit they're not, but they will eventually. They hope. And I also find interesting that Enrique in the film, he doesn't say, "I'm speaking words to you." Do you get me? But MJ still says, "I get you." And that works. It still works, but it's just interesting to see that, like, the idea for that was that she was actually parroting his words back at him. Um, so the more you know, I guess, huh? All right. Next scene. Exterior, Harry's apartment. Day. A cool place in Tribeca. Interior, Harry's apartment. Day. The door opens. Peter enters, downhearted. He spots Norman pacing around, speaking on a cell phone. Norman nods to him. Peter nods back. He sees Harry at the dining room table. College textbooks open. Harry turns, out of sorts. Harry says, Storm and Norman, making his weekly inspection, spends half of it on the phone. Regarding the open books, he says, Man, am I glad you're here. I need your help. I'm hopelessly lost. What's wrong with you? Somebody run over your dog? Peter says, No, I was late and Dr. Connors fired me. Late again? What is it with you? Where do you go all the time? Around. For a completely responsible guy, you're completely irresponsible. Osborne hangs up his phone. Peter Parker! He turns. Norman Osborn is walking toward him, all smiles. Maybe you can tell me who she is. Who? This mystery girl Harry's been dating. Dad? I think he wants me to meet this one, and believe me, it's the first time that's happened. Harry says sharply, Dad? Osborne stops, looks at Harry. What? Peter looks at Harry too, but Harry avoids his gaze. Sorry, Harry hasn't mentioned her. Harry says, to change the subject, Hey, Pete, you're probably looking for work now. Dad, maybe you can help him find a job? Peter shakes his head, makes his way toward the kitchen. Oh, no, I appreciate it, but I'll be fine. It's no problem. I'll make some phone calls. No, I couldn't accept it. I like to earn what I get. I can find work. I respect that. Osborne, making his way over to Harry. You want to make it on your own steam. That's great. He says to Harry, Interesting, isn't it? Peter is looking for work, as in actively seeking, as opposed to strenuously avoiding. Harry says, What do you want from me? I'm trying to keep my grades up. Peter notices a copy of the Daily Bugle on the kitchen counter. He picks it up, looks at the front page. What other skills do you have, Parker? Peter looks up from the front page of the Daily Bugle, which he's been studying intently. I'm thinking of something in photography. He tosses the bugle back on the counter where we see the front page. There's a crude sketch of Spider Man's face under the headline Wanted, Photographic Proof, Bugle Offers Reward. Exterior, bank, night. A 35mm camera is suspended in the cornice on the third floor of a building. Peering in through the lens, we see a red light flashing. Through the camera lens, the words auto shutter flash in red in the lower right corner of the frame. We're looking through the viewfinder now, watching as three bank robbers emerge from a bank, guns drawn, hostage in tow. A dark figure swings into view and does battle with the bank robbers. The camera on the cornice suddenly flashes, and in that flash instance, we get our first good look at the amazing Spider-Man, all caps, in his new, improved, extremely snazzy costume. The image freezes, changes to interior, Daily Bugle, newsroom, day. The resultant still photograph. A hand flips past it to more pictures of Spider-Man. All good shots. Swinging, flying, web shooting. Robbie Robertson looks up in the newsroom of the Daily Bugle. They're good. Very good. How'd you get 'em? Peter says, If I tell you, You'll send your own photographer. Am I hired? It's not up to me. Mr. Jameson hires all staff personally. They hear shouts from the office across the hall. Jameson, off screen, shouting, Is that what I said? Is that what I asked? I said a picture, Eddie, none ink blot. Why the hell can't anybody give me decent art on that freak? Get the hell out of here. Robbie says, he fires him that way too. Eddie Brock, another young photographer, comes out of Jameson's office. Brock is shabbily dressed. Eddie locks eyes with Peter and says, What are you looking at, greenhorn? Brock walks away. Jonah Jameson appears in the doorway, shouts after him, And Brock, would it kill you to get a decent suit? He turns, sees Peter, inexplicably continues in shouting mode. What? Interior, Jameson's office, day. Jameson sits behind his desk, flipping through the photographs. Peter's across from him, nervous, but Robbie gives him a wink. Hang in there. Jameson says, They're crap. Flip. Crap. Flip. Crap. Flip. Mega crap. I'll give you 300 for all of them. That seems a little low. Then take him somewhere else. Peter rises, starts to collect the photographs. Jameson says, Sit down. All right, I'll give you 500. That's the standard freelance fee. Jameson takes the photographs back and hands them to Robbie, muttering as he points to one in particular. Tear up page 1. Run that shot instead. Peter does a double take. Page 1? Robbie asks, Headline? Jameson says, Spider-Man, hero or menace? Exclusive Daily Bugle photos. Peter pipes up, Menace? Sir, he was protecting that bank from those. Tell you what, Atticus, you take the pictures, I make up the headlines, okay? That all right with you? Peter says, Yes, sir. I would like a job, sir. No jobs. Freelance. Best thing in the world for a kid your age. Bring me more shots of that newspaper selling clown, and I might take him off your hands. Come on, get out of here. I got deadlines. Montage. Always time for a good montage. Exterior, nondescript building. My favorite type of building, actually. Night. We see a web. A camera flashes. Interior, Daily Bugle. Day, late afternoon. Jameson, Robbie, and Peter in Jameson's office. Robbie hands Jameson a front page mock up with a photo of Spider-Man in action. The headline reads, NY cheers costume hero. Jameson frowns, crosses out cheers, writes in fears, crosses out hero, writes in coward. Holds up the paper. Headline now reads, NY fears costume coward. Peter sees it. Interior, Jameson's office. Day. Peter brings in an envelope, hands it to Jameson, who opens it. More Spider-Man photos. Interior, Bugle, another day. Robbie hands Jameson another newspaper mock-up with a Spider-Man photo on the front page and no headline. Robbie asks, Headline? Jameson, thinking, Spider-Man, superhero or super zero? Peter reacts. Interior, Bugle, another day. Robbie, Peter, Jameson. A newspaper is lowered to his desk. Close shot. The headline shouts, Big Apple fears spider bite. Pull back, all. Peter asks, Why are you so hard on him? He's on the side of the law. He thinks he is the law. There's no place in this society for vigilante justice. Once one person takes the law in his own hands, it's anarchy. Peter, with growing dissatisfaction of Spider-Man photos and headlines, Mr. Jameson, how about an assignment? I'd like to shoot something other than Spider-Man. No, you just keep doing what you're doing. Robbie says, JJ, we need someone to cover the World Unity Festival. Let's send Peter. World Unity Festival. Another epic display of Oscorp's self-aggrandizement. Fine, send him. But I never said you have a job. Meat. I'll give you a box of Christmas meat. Best I can do. Now get me more pictures. So, Some interesting stuff going on here. Not the least of which, of course, is a little cameo by Eddie Brock here, setting up his inevitable, distaste for Peter down the line when Eddie gets booted and Peter becomes their main freelance photographer. And of course, Eddie's still mentioned in Spider-Man 1, and it seems like he's introduced in Spider-Man 3, which of course he is. But I like to think that he really was there before, and that was a couple of years ago. And when you watch Spider-Man 3, Jameson also can't seem to keep a grasp on Eddie's name. He keeps calling him Bruckner. He keeps coming up with like different last names for him. He can't remember the guy's name. I think it's perfectly plausible that Eddie did work. This is the Eddie that couldn't get a shot of Spider-Man years ago, and maybe he moved on to greener pastures after that. But before coming back to the Bugle for Spider-Man 3, so I think that kind of works. Um, it's we have Harry has that line about did somebody run over your dog instead of you look like you came in second place in the science competition, which I like the latter version better. And yeah, we have more. We actually see more of this, dynamic going on in the Daily Bugle. Um, where we have a whole scene first with just Peter and Robbie, which is ends up totally getting cut. We just cut to the crap, crap, mega crap part, which is a pretty strong part, I have to say. And then we actually have a montage watching this kind of grating on Peter and kind of getting him down, which I like. I like that. We don't get too much of that really in the end product of the movie. We do get the Christmas meet. Yeah, some of those lines are just in different spots too, which is interesting. Okay, now speaking of interesting, here's a red letter scene for you. The Norman gets the boot. Exterior: Oscorp corporate headquarters. Day: a sprawling high-rise adorning the Manhattan skyline. Interior: Oscorp boardroom. Day: Norman Osborn sits at the head of a long table in the Oscorp boardroom, concluding a meeting. The cat who ate the canary. Osborn says, in addition, we've secured 3 major new government contracts, and I'm pleased to announce that as of today, Oscorp Industries has surpassed Quest Aerospace as the principal supplier to the United States military. In short, ladies and gentlemen of the board, costs are down, revenue is up, and our stock has never been higher. Simultaneously, they all close the leather-bound folders that were open in front of them. Balkan sits forward. That's wonderful news, Norman. He clears his throat. In fact, it's the reason we're selling the company. Osborn says, what? Balkan says, it took us all by surprise, but Quest Aerospace is recapitalizing in the wake of the bombing. Osborn says, Fargus, what the hell's going on here? Fargus doesn't respond. Balkan says, Quest is expanding, and they've made a tender offer we can't ignore. Osborn says, why wasn't I told about this? Balkan says, the last thing they want is a power struggle with entrenched management. Fargus says, they want you out, Norman. The deal is off if you come with it. The board expects your resignation in 30 days. Osborn says, you can't do this to me. I built this company. He says to Fargus, Max, please. Norman quickly scans the faces of the hostile board members. Fargus says, the board is unanimous. I'm sorry. We're announcing the sale right after the World Unity Festival. Balkan says, you're out, Norman. He doesn't actually say anything about sipping tea here, so I like that touch. Osborn says, in a way that means, oh yeah? Am I? An end scene, and I think you'll notice there were some glaring omissions from this scene in the filming script here. Norman doesn't get his big blow up. He doesn't get his famous you know how much I sacrifice line. Not here. Not in the script. Very interesting. I'm not exactly sure where that came from, but I would imagine it very well could have been Willem Dafoe himself suggesting that, because initially the idea for Norman Osborn was that he came from old money, and it was Willem Dafoe's idea that no, I think he worked for what he got. Um, and that had some repercussions throughout the film. For one thing, even just the design of his set, his home, it was originally designed to look like he came from more established old money wealth, and then they kind of changed things to make it more that he earned it all himself. And so I have to wonder if he himself came up with that line. But yeah, it's missing something without that big blow up, isn't it? Hey, Will. Is that Weibo from Flubber behind you near the FF poster? You bet it is. There she is. The creator of the GIF, right there. The creator of the reaction image. Did Weibo create memes? I don't know. That's not for me to say. That's for the academics to sort out. All right, now here we go. Here's the big climax of this section and the climax of this part of the reading here. The World Unity Day Festival. You ready? Let's do it. Exterior, Times Square, day. An enormous, multicolored globe stands over Times Square, today the site of World Unity Festival, a festival of healing and unification. On the stage, Macy Gray entertains the crowd with a soulful rendition of Why Didn't You Call Me? In the street, Peter Parker works his way through the crowd taking pictures. Through the lens, he spots a young man reading the Daily Bugle. Peter focuses on the headline, which reads, Big Apple dreads spider bite. Peter lowers his camera, shakes his head. He takes in the spectacle before him, continues working his way through the crowd taking pictures. Giant balloons float in the air. Thousands are in attendance here. The vibe is sweetness and light. A mother buys her 7-year-old boy, Billy, some cotton candy. 5 stories up, a balcony on one building has been converted into a reviewing stand, buttressed by 2 Hercules statues, one at each corner, which appear to be holding the reviewing stand aloft. All this under a large banner which reads, Osborne Industries welcomes you to the 3rd annual World Unity Festival. I will note that the script itself says Osborne Industries, just in the interest of fairness of reading to you exactly what's on the page here. It's a little bit of a typo, but, there you go. I don't want to shortchange you here. 9 angry men and women, the Oscorp Board of Directors, sit in a row in suits and ties, chatting up other dignitaries. Nice 9 Angry Men reference. Balkan and Fargus are smiling, but it's sort of gruesome. Harry is fixing a Unity Day pin to MJ. He stands back to study her. Perfect. Except, how come you didn't wear the black dress? I wanted to impress my father. He loves black. Well, maybe he'll be impressed no matter what. You think I'm pretty. Of course I do. You're beautiful. Angle on Peter in the street. Peter raises his camera, squeezes off a few shots. Through his lens, Peter scans the balloons, the floating streamers, comes to a Hercules statue. He tilts his camera up the statue's torso, rising up to the balcony's edge, up past Harry and MJ, up further. He sees Harry put his arm around MJ, leans in for a kiss. Time slows down. Harry's mouth approaches MJ's. The worst is about to happen. But at the last second, MJ turns, giving Harry cheek when he wanted lips. On the street, Peter whips the camera down, pumps a fist in the air. Hope. That would have been a lot. That would have been a lot to go that far with the time slowing. Harry, his cheek turned, is looking down at the street. He sees Peter, who looks back up and sees Harry. They see each other, seeing each other. Harry, caught in the act. On the reviewing stand, Harry averts his gaze from Peter, puts his arm around MJ, ushers her away. On the street, Peter's expression suddenly changes completely. His eyes widen. We leap outside him as his spider sense goes off, slowing everything to a crawl. Spidey POV races all around him, searching the crowd for any sign of danger, but finding nothing. Back on the street, things return to normal speed. Peter looks around, puzzled. On the reviewing stand, Harry leads MJ through the balcony crowd, spots Balkan and Fargus, walks up to them. Have you seen my father? The two board members share an uncomfortable look. Fargus says, I'm not sure he'll be joining us. Balkan and Fargus turn, hear something. So do the others around them. It's a high-pitched whining sound. Harry and MJ look for the noise, make their way to the balcony edge. On the street, Peter is really going crazy, certain there's a problem somewhere, but not sure what it is. He looks up. In the sky, something darts in and out of the clouds, something small and very, very fast. On the reviewing stand, Fargus is squinting up into the sky, at the source of the whining. Fargus says, What is that? Balkan joins him. Must be new this year, Balkan says. He raises a pair of binoculars and continues, What the devil? Is that our wing? In midair, we're flying, a first-person shot. A deranged cackle echoes over the whine of a jet engine turbine. On the street, whatever it is, comes through for another pass, lower this time. But it passes so fast, zigzagging through the floats, that we can't really get a handle on it. On the reviewing stand, Balkan and Fargus look troubled. But the crowd applauds, all smiles. They like this bit. In midair, whatever it is curls up into the sky, banks and hovers, turning right toward the reviewing stand. From behind it, we see that it's a figure atop a flying thing, and the figure reaches down to his belt and detaches some kind of device, the size of a softball, with vertical bulges like those on a pumpkin. As he raises the device, we get our first look at, all caps, the Green Goblin. He's clad in a form-fitting dark green suit, densely layered with complicated circuitry, a suit we have seen before in the Oscorp lab. Over his face, he wears a grotesque green demonic mask, and he has both legs astride a small, flat flying wing, big enough for one, also the one we saw in the lab. The goblin cackles, a hideous laugh that echoes over the street. On the stage, Macy Gray, her background singers and dancers stop performing, look around, weren't informed regarding this part of the show. And the crowd cheers. They love this guy. The goblin twitches, and the glider responds immediately, banking and plummeting, straight down toward the reviewing stand. The goblin detonates the device he holds, a pumpkin bomb, and hurls it toward one of the Hercules statues. Kaboom! Hercules crumbles. The reviewing stand begins to collapse, lurches lower, sways. VIPs topple. MJ is thrown forward, Harry backwards. Debris showers the pavement below, nearly crushing terrorized citizens. On the stage, Ms. Gray's security guards rush in, cover her, escort her to safety. On the street, Peter elbows his way through the crowd and takes off toward the mouth of an alley. On the reviewing stand, there is a shudder, a crack, and the entire stand drops a few feet. MJ is splayed precariously on the dangling balcony balustrades. Harry gets to his feet, goes to her, but his weight causes the balcony to shift. Hercules cracks yet again. MJ is tossed further to the outer edge of the balcony. The Green Goblin soars upward, takes another pumpkin bomb from his pouch, and hurls it. On the reviewing stand, the bomb lands with a thunk, bounces to a stop right in front of the members of the Oscorp board. The bomb whirs a few feet into the air, and then zap flash! It explodes in a brilliant orange, so bright and searing it irradiates half a dozen members of the board, turning them into X ray images. Screams everywhere. They don't love this guy anymore. The blast concussion causes the balcony to separate yet again. Now MJ is really in trouble. Harry crawls over to her, blinking to get the spots from his eyes. He reaches out his hand. MJ reaches out her hand to him when the Green Goblin rises up behind her on his glider. Malefic grin. MJ turns to him, shrieks. The Goblin lets out a blood-curdling cackle, revels in the mayhem unfolding, but cuts it short, hesitates, hearing something. He turns and the amazing Spider-Man swings down from a building above and pow! Smacks right into the Goblin, knocking the villain clean off his glider. The Goblin plummets from 6 stories up, except that he lands on one of the passing floats, bounces off it, makes a nifty midair twist, and crashes feet first into a large tent below, which breaks his fall. In midair, the glider comes sailing down after the Goblin, as with a homing device. It smashes through the globe replica, which is knocked off its perch, and comes out the other side, heading for the Goblin. Spider-Man clings to the side of a building, overlooking the chaos. His eyes zip over to the reviewing stand, where MJ is in big trouble. But then there are screams, and his eyes zip over the other way, to where the globe replica has begun to roll. On the street, crushing everything in its wake, and headed straight for little Billy, who stares in frozen shock as it heads right for him. His mother screams. On the building, Spider-Man fires a web at a billboard high atop a nearby building and swings in a huge arc straight for Billy. He sweeps the child up just as the globe rolls past, stamping out parking meters like matchsticks. The Green Goblin is on the ground, stuck in the tangle of the collapsed tent and surrounded by cops whose guns are raised. The Green Goblin says, "I surrender! I surrender! Media violence made me do it." The cops hesitate, and in that moment, the Goblin leaps, inhumanly, into the thick of them. They go after him, piling on, in a blizzard of flashing nightsticks. Nearby, Spider-Man swings to the ground, depositing Billy in the arms of his mother. He looks over to where the cops have blanketed the Goblin, fists flying. But with a shocking burst of strength, the Goblin hurls the cops off him, and they go flying in all directions. Spider-Man makes a leaping run. He handsprings, somersaults, vaults himself in the air, and lands on his feet in front of the Goblin. The Green Goblin says, "How dare you interfere with me? What do you want?" Spider-Man says, "World peace, but I'll settle for your chin." And he sends a fist into the Goblin's chin. The Goblin flies across the street, crashing into a brick wall. Spider-Man comes at him again with another haymaker, which the Goblin catches in one gloved hand, stopping it. The Green Goblin says, "See what I did there?" And now it's his turn to throw a massive punch. Spider-Man goes ass over elbows, smashing through an ice cream cart and into a lamppost. The Goblin touches something on his wrist, and a moment later, his glider comes whizzing down, right behind Spider-Man, who leaps up and over it at the last second. The Goblin jumps on the glider, clicks his boots into the wings, and he's off into the sky. In midair, the Goblin banks left, turns back. He hits a button, and small machine guns appear from the glider's tips. On the reviewing stand, Harry reaches for MJ, but she's out of reach, still trapped on the reviewing stand. She tries to climb to safety as it sways, cracks like ice in springtime, rivets pop. In midair, the Goblin fires at Spider-Man, raking the ground around him with bullets. Spider-Man fires a web up to an enormous Rastaman float, and he swings up, out of the gunfire's path, up over the top of the float as the Goblin disappears into the sky. From Spider-Man's POV, we see MJ on the crumbling balcony, imperiled. A procession of floats hover between her and Spidey. So, Spider Man leaps. A super jump, a tuck and roll, and he leapfrogs from float to float. One, two, three. He makes his final leap for the balcony when, in midair, the goblin zooms in behind Spider Man, wraps him in a bear hug, and drives him into the building above the balcony. Glass and debris rain down. On the balcony, Harry is struck in the head by a chunk of debris. His knees buckle and he crashes to the floor, unconscious. In midair, the combatants trade blows. The goblin rears back, delivers a crushing elbow to Spidey's jaw, and sending him plummeting toward the balcony. On the balcony, Spider Man, Glass, and chunks of the building come crashing down near MJ, causing her to roll out to the very edge. She is saved by the balustrades, which break her fall. MJ watches as debris crumbles, falls 5 stories. Spider Man is just about to move toward MJ when the goblin appears, rising up out of nowhere, hovering right behind him. He whirls towards Spider Man. A weapon hums up out of the glider, points at Spider Man. Spidey shoots a web. It splats over the goblin's face, obscuring his vision. A laser beam blasts into the wall next to Spidey. Spider Man reaches up into the glider and pulls out a handful of wiring from underneath the wing. The goblin takes off. The goblin takes off, clawing the webbing out of his face, the glider smoking and sputtering. Safe. No, not safe. The building ledge finally crumbles, and she falls, screaming. In midair, Spider Man dives down after her, straight down, trailing a web behind him. He catches MJ just short of the street. The web pulls taut, and they bounce back up just before hitting the pavement, like at the end of a bungee jump. They sail back up into the air, just as the balcony finally collapses behind them. Exterior, collapsing balcony. Harry wakes. He's at the edge of the balcony, and just then he sees Spider-Man swinging away with MJ. Exterior, street, day. They swoosh overhead. A cabbie exits his cab, points, watches the duo swing away. Cabbie says, "What the hell's that?" Alternatively, the cabbie could have said, "Look, it's Superman." Alternate line. Neither of which were used. But you already know that. In midair, Spidey and MJ swing through the spectacular canyon of skyscrapers. She works up the nerve to ask him, "Who are you?" Spider-Man says, "You know." "I do?" "Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man." Exterior, atop Rockefeller Center, the gardens. Spider-Man lands gracefully, deposits her gently on the grass, where 2 young lovers are making out on a bench. Spider-Man says, "Don't mind us. She needs to use the elevator." I want to say what the movie's version of it is. Jaws drop. Spider-Man turns and leaps off the edge of the building, throwing in a double somersault before shooting out a web. Breathless, MJ watches him swing away into the city. MJ says to herself, "Spider-Man." And scene. And that's it. That's the tale of Spider-Man as told by David Koepp. For this portion of our read through. But let's take a look back here and look at some of what we've been reading here, shall we? Because there's some interesting differences here in this scene in particular. I think from the final film. For one thing, the Goblin barely gets any of his iconic lines here in the script. They're just absent. "Hello, my dear. Out am I." None of that's here. Impressive. Not here. Not impressive here. And we have, like I said, what might have been just a little bit too corny. That slowing down time to watch the slow motion kiss between Harry and MJ. But I do think that's a neat idea to show that kind of flashback to the POV type of spider sense that we really only get to see in the movie at the beginning and at the end. We see it, when Peter's in high school, and at the end when the glider's about to attack him. When like the out of body version of the spider sense. And I like seeing that here. Peter's trying to figure out, where the danger is, but he can't find it. And speaking of the glider, we have a foreshadowing of that, where the glider swoops by behind Peter and he has to leap out of the way, which he'll ultimately do at the end. And speaking about more foreshadowing, he sees MJ in danger and his eyes are looking there. Granted, I mean, he's wearing the, the goggles of the mask, so it might be a little hard. I don't know about his eyes turning, but his whole head, I'm sure, would be turning. He's looking at MJ imperiled, but then little Billy over on the other side, he sees is imperiled. Suffer the children over there, and he has to make his choice, and he swings over to go save Billy first. So that's kind of foreshadowing the Goblin's tactic later on in the movie. Also, here the World Unity giant globe is actually like rolling, whereas I feel like in the movie it's mostly just sort of deflating. Here it's kind of pulling a Raiders of the Lost Ark, and he has to swoop in and save Little Billy. Of course, his name's Little Billy. Yeah, 9 Angry Men reference. We love to see it. For anyone keeping track, this is the 3rd annual World Unity Festival. J. Jonah Jameson is not a big fan of it. It makes sense, of course. A military supplier is going to be, weapons manufacturer is going to be having a feel good public event about unity and healing. It's kind of a mask, you might say, for what Oscorp is. Norman, he loves his masks. We also mentioned the form-fitting dark green suit that Norman wears is densely layered with complicated circuitry, which is a little bit of more of a holdover from some earlier ideas. Of course, it didn't end up in the final version that we see on screen. I'll note that at one point Norman takes a pumpkin bomb off of his belt. At another point, he has a what's the word that it used? A pouch, more like in the comics, his bag of tricks. So interesting that kind of both are sort of included in this draft, whether on accident or on purpose. I like the way it describes how the bomb goes off. For one thing, it kind of floats in the air a little bit here after it lands. And it goes off in this brilliant orange that irradiates the board members, turning them into X-ray images. And I guess you could say that's what happened in the finished movie. I mean, I don't know who looked at that and was like, X-ray images. You mean like skeletons, right? And that's what we did. So that's pretty cool. And scripts are interesting. They're not written like normal, like a book or a short story or anything like that, but they should still be easy to read and engaging and interesting. And I think that can definitely be said of David Koepp and co. Their script here. I think it makes for a pretty exciting read, and I think this scene here just proves that. I mean, the tension is constantly raising. This is really the first big like superhero supervillain battle for cinema that Spider-Man ever had, and it's kind of neat to see how that comes together here. Spider-Man gets a quip here. Your mileage may vary on it, where the Green Goblin says, how dare you interfere with me? What do you want? Spider-Man says, world peace, but I'll settle for your chin. Hello, people over on YouTube comments. Sorry I missed you for a second there. Hey, S Wizzle. Thank you. And it is great plot. Great plot. I agree with you. There too. Also, I should mention part of this is all thanks to I got my Joe's Pizza shirt on today. The anniversary of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2, 20 years this weekend, Sunday, 20 years of Spider-Man. And so partly on this, we're kind of celebrating here tonight on this So Much to Tell Sam Raimi Spider-Man podcast channel by reading the script from the one that started all, the script of Spider-Man 1. And as it happens, we also have a new episode coming out on Monday all about the subject of Spider-Man 2, Dr. Otto Octavius, Dr. Octopus, Doc Ock. And so that's something maybe to look forward to on Monday. Me and my co-host Sean looking at some new sides of the octopus, if you will. But yeah, that's what we do here. That's what we do. That's what we love to do here on So Much to Tell, Sam Raimi Spider-Man podcast. We talk Spider-Man, specifically the Sam Raimi Spider-Man. And that's all we do 24/7. And because there's so much to tell. There is so much to tell. So, like they say in the movie. There we go. Anything else of interest here in this scene? Because I think this was a very interesting scene. Like I said, we don't get so many iconic lines. We don't get "Hello, my dear." We get a laser beam. There's a laser beam on the Goblin glider here. Not in the finished version of the film, there isn't. It's just like a big, knife kind of thing in the finished film. I know 20 years, right? That's quite some time. I agree. The cabbie making a Superman reference. That's the first of 2 Superman references in the script, I believe. Only one of which will make it into the finished film. And yeah, just interesting to kind of see the other lines moving around a little bit here, like the "Who are you?" I do. Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. It's so elegant in the movie when he jumps off at that line, but not here. That first happens when they're swinging. Also, I'm so used to in the movie, Goblin catching Peter's fist and saying "impressive." Of course, here in the script, though, he just says, "See what I did there?" So, yeah, I just love seeing how the pieces here stack up and came together. Sean, you said you're sure it was a rad script. It is a rad script. It is very enjoyable. You love the podcast? Well, thank you, Uncle Rizzo. Glad you could be here with us. Glad you enjoy it. We love it. And, like I said, we're looking forward to the next episode on Monday with, I'm trying to remember, Sean, what's the name of it? Doc Ock's Day Off is the title. I can tell you the title now. Doc Ock's Day Off. It'll be coming out at 2:03 a.m. I think that's our time. Pizza time on Monday morning. Can somebody tell that Sean guy that he's a real dork? Sounds like you just did. Is this like the scene where Norman and the Goblin are talking to each other in the mirror, Sean? So Sean says, "Tell that Sean he's a real dork." Was there a pumpkin bomb in the movie? Yes, it was a pumpkin bomb in the movie, but some of its functions seem a little different here. Like it raises off the ground a little bit before it explodes. Yeah, fascinating. I look forward to reading more of this in the near future, and I will. We started this a couple months ago. We read the first chunk, and now we've read the second chunk, and later on, we've got some. Just as a small sliver of a preview here, we'll go through it later. But like, there's this whole thing with like Peter drinking milk when Harry gets back to the apartment, and Peter is very calm because he knows MJ's okay, but Harry's freaking out because, as far as he knows, MJ was kidnapped by Spider-Man, and Peter's just like quietly drinking milk, as a milk mustache. I'm like, was this sponsored by milk? There's some very interesting things, and Sean, you and I have talked recently about how very different the Green Goblin and Norman's confrontation in the mirror is. So I look forward to getting around to that soon enough, let's say. I don't know exactly when we're going to do it, but so I want these to be kind of like little chunks that we've uploaded here to YouTube, and this has already been a little bit over an hour, and I think that'll be pretty good for tonight. And I hope you all have enjoyed this little foray into the world of Spider-Man with me, all you web heads out in the web there. I will now go, what we got here? I'm going to go watch Spider-Man 2 as I'm reading the novelization, listening to both the album and Danny Elfman's score to it while I go through my, reminisce with my Spider-Man 2 trading cards, just to really soak in the full force of this monumentous, uh, you know, holiday that we find ourselves in. I mean, we all celebrate when it's the 20th anniversary of Spider-Man 1, but I mean, Spider-Man 2 is nothing to slouch at either. Of course, as I'm wearing my Joe's Pizza shirt as well. So, okay, that's enough of me goofing off here. Uh, thanks for joining me, everyone. Hope you enjoyed. We'll read more of this script at a later date. Maybe keep an eye out for that if you enjoy that. And yeah, we'll catch you later. Tally ho.